Hello, welcome to the Word Café podcast. This podcast has been designed with curated content that centers on the power of words. Can we really do anything without speaking? Can we really do anything without the agency of words? Yes, that is what this podcast is all about. And I am your host, Amakri Isoboye, your neighborhood word trader. I believe in the power of words, for it is the unit of creation. I trade in words to profit my world. Hello there. Wonderful. Yes, we're back again to the Word Cafe live show. How you doing, guys? It's been a while. I know. Sometimes when you do this, you get so engrossed in it, and somehow when you take a little break, it feels like forever, but we're back again. So how you doing? Yes, good morning, good afternoon, good everything. That's the way we say it on the show. Yes. So how are you? What's happening at your end? Well, let me tell you what's happening at my end. It's raining where I am today. Yes, pretty. It's been raining all day, so it's a wet day on this side of the globe, but it's okay. Yes, we're back, and today I have somebody, an exciting personality, on the show with me. Don't worry, he's around. Yes, you know how we'll do it. We'll bring him on very soon. I mean, his let me use the word exciting. The way he expresses himself and all that. When I got talking with him to will you do this with me? Wow, he just jumped at it immediately. All right, enough of the chat. Let me bring him on. Who is he? The name is already there. Yes. Hi.
Hey, good morning, everyone.
Orlando Taylor, how are you doing?
I'm doing well and lucky and blessed to be here with you.
Awesome. You know why I call your name the way I call your name? Do you know why?
No,
yes,
what's up?
Because my elder brother's name is Orlando El Paso. So the first time I saw your name, I was like,
Okay.
So I call it with so much energy because he's full
talking
of
to
life.
your brother. Okay.
Exactly. I'm talking to my brother. How you doing?
All right, I'll try to live up to that energy he has.
Oh, wow. So what's it like at your end?
Right now, California, it's a cool morning. It's the weather seasons are changing, so the days are a lot cooler than they have been, which has been good because we've been experiencing a great deal of drought in California and heat and the fires. So It's good to have the cooler weather today.
I can imagine that. Wonderful. All right, before we jump into anything, who is Orlando Taylor? We want to know, who is he?
Okay, I would say Orlando Taylor is, a young man who was born in St. Louis, Missouri. He grew up in St. Louis, Missouri. Grew up in a neighborhood that was a very connected neighborhood, a historic neighborhood. The Ville neighborhood of St. Louis has one of the oldest high schools in the country of the United States. It's a black high school that is the oldest high school. I went to Sumner High School, which is the oldest high school west of the Mississippi River in the United States. So it was a very encouraging time, and I had a lot of great mentors, a lot of great teachers along the way who really encouraged me to really improve myself, to really kind of treat this life as I go through this life, to become that kind of Renaissance person who is able to think and speak on a myriad of subjects. And I was surrounded by a lot of elders who looked out for me, who watched out for me, and who wanted me to be the best person I could possibly be. And I can remember I was surprised by a conversation I had with an elder who lived across the street from where I grew up. And one day I was home from college and he was like, hey, I really wanted to stop and tell you that I'm really proud of you. And I respect, what you've done. You went away, you graduated from high school, you did well, and you went away to college, and you did what you were supposed to do. And I just want to tell you that I'm very, very proud of you. And so it's that kind of atmosphere I feel like helped produce the person that you see today.
Awesome. So what was it like? You talked about Missouri, Mississippi, and all that. What was it like growing up at that time, in that part of the country for you?
I would say because you were a kid, you didn't realize a lot of the kind of like social issues that were going on. You were I was just a kid growing up in the neighborhood. But as I got older and could look back, that time was a very, I was born at a time at the end of the 60s, and you still had the revolutionary thoughts that were happening from the 70s and into the early parts of the 80s. And so it was a very interesting time, a very powerful time. And there's a lot of blackness and a lot of pride in who you are as a person of African descent, in the world. And so I think it's that tradition under which I grew up on, which inspired me to write, which inspired me to be, an individual who, as the old folks would say, who's approved, who somebody can look at and say, hey, we can trust this individual thought process, and, they'll be there to help in the community to move it along, and those kinds of things. And so as I graduated from high school and into in college and to the 90s, you had this bit of a change as you had the country go into this law and order era, and you had the drug culture and the gang culture kind of permeate, across the country. And so some of those things, some of those issues I talk about in the book as well. So it's a very interesting time, it's still times when I'm very happy about my life and growing up as a Black person in the United States, but there's still a great deal of turmoil that was happening during those early years as well.
Yeah, you sound like one with a great old soul. Like,
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Yeah, a great old soul. Listening to
you, it's one of those. Yeah, it's one of those things. I guess I was always encouraged to never turn away from your elders. And I guess as I grew up, there were times when I felt more comfortable sitting around and listening to elders than I did people who were my peers, I
can imagine that feeling, for your age, as at that time, your peers, your age grade and all that will be wondering, what's Orlando doing with those?
Exactly. And I kind of developed that reputation, I guess, if you're familiar with the animated show, The Boondocks, I was kind of like a Huey Freeman type, in my era. I was always the kid that instead of doing all this, we probably should be just reading a book. I was a kid, who would always be quicker to be under my microscope than I would to ride my bike.
I can imagine that. Why poetry? Why writing? Why did you choose this aspect of expressing yourself? Because for a lot of us, we look at our brothers across, in the US, we're into more of singing and the rap culture and what have you. But you chose writing. Why?
Because I felt like it was when I was a kid, I was a voracious reader, and my mother had problems trying to keep me from books that were not age appropriate. Not that there's a bit bad material, but she wanted to make sure I was reading at books that were age appropriate. And I think as I got older, the stories that were captivating me in those books, I wanted to be kind of like the author of those stories. I learned in the United States, the character Anansi became Brer Rabbit. There's a character called Brer Rabbit. And so because of the culture in the Southeast, Anansi became Brer Rabbit, which is basically all black rabbit. And many of the stories told by Brer Rabbit in the Southeast are the same stories that are told by Anansi. And those captivated me. And it's like, I want to be able to tell stories that touch people, that make people think, that make people laugh, and hopefully that connect people to each other. And I think that's a product of reading so much.
There's this ideology or this notion that what I think is up there when it comes to poetry, you always think of somebody like Shakespeare, like Shakespearean and all that, and you see a black dude coming up and writing, it's like, excuse me. Excuse me?
Yeah, I guess because it breaks the stereotypes, I guess, in a sense, because unfortunately for black men, particularly in the United States, we exist in a duality. At one time, we're looked at as these untamable beasts who are monsters that are uncontrollable. But then at times, we're also looked at these individuals who are incapable of intelligence, who don't measure up, who are lazy, who don't have great thought process. And you can't be those same two things at one time. And so, you eventually have to throw away the stereotypes and just look within yourself and look at who you are from a historical perspective and where you come from, and let that be, for me, that became the fuel or the kind of like fire on the fireplace, to keep me going and to help me be the person I am today.
Why did you choose this name for your book, The Scars? Why?
Because I felt like right now we are going through an era where I feel like a lot of us are assessing or reassessing who we are as men in the world. And some of the things, particularly in the Black community in the United States, we've allowed to fester in our community, or just some of the things that we haven't taken, as men haven't taken responsibility to do in the community. And then also the effects of this world and white supremacy and other issues in the community, and how it affects you as a Black person, and specifically sometimes as a Black man. And I believe that we're in an era, COVID has caused, this to be kind of like the face-off era, as a friend said to me, that you see more and more things more clearly. And I think people are trying to see more clearly and trying to make adjustments and to do better for the community. And that title comes just from, as I've gone through my life, and as everybody does, you get scars on your life, and it's a representation for me that you've been birthed into life, and that you know life, and that you've experienced in life. And these scars are not something that you should be ashamed of, but it's just simply a reality, and it has basically made you who you are. So there's no reason to be ashamed of it.
So more or less, you're not ashamed of these scars because they don't put you in a demeaning position. Rather, you stand on these scars from a standpoint of strength, and
it's like it's part of your foundation of who you are. And so I often wonder, we often talk about things that we regret, and would there be things I would take away from my life and because I think it would make me a better person. And what I find is, if you remove those things from your life, it might make you a completely different person.
Well,
so you have to learn to set with them,
Exactly. Somebody just dropped the comment there, Rachel. She's a friend and a sister.
Okay.
She's also a writer. You can see that she said, I want to write stories that will make people think. So
exactly.
What are what's the end to your writing? Is it to make people think, or beyond that?
To make people think, and also to connect to as people think, you also connect to understand that you're not that different than anyone else. Oh. And I think that sometimes, particularly in the whole African diaspora, we talk about the various elements of difference in culture. But what I'm finding more and more, if I have conversations with people from Senegal, people from Ghana, people from Nigeria, people from Kenya, people from Tanzania, we're not very different at all. And many of the experiences, even though I'm a Black man and pure person of African descent all the way across the pond, I'm still, my experiences are very much in parallel with your experiences. There's slight subtle differences. But at the same time, we're still dealing with what it means to be a Black person in the United States, in this world that has been unfortunately dominated by white supremacist social and economic ideologies towards, specifically in many cases, towards African people.
Yeah. Now, I know you have that Nigerian thing flowing around you. Let's talk about the Nigerian thing flowing around you. Mm-hmm. The Nigerian thing. There's a name. Is it Laolu? Am I correct?
Oh, Laolu, yes. A friend of mine gave that to me. We were having, a lot of discussions, and he was going through some personal things in his own life. And I told him I'd done my DNA test and came back that I am connected to the Yoruba tribe in Nigeria. And so he gave me that name because he said, you're such a person that's full of spirit. You may not necessarily have a lot of money, but you have a lot of spirit and a lot of wisdom. And he said, you're so honest and you're so willing to share that it feels like you filled me with your wealth. And so that's where that name came from him.
So more or less you've connected the dots now.
Yes, sir.
You have the Yoruba thing flowing in you. So do you have any plan, within, say, the nearest future to come to Nigeria, to be precise now?
Yeah, the goal is, hopefully within a year or so to come doing the early spring season, like February, March, because they say a lot of times the tickets get more expensive once you get past April in any particular year into particularly one person really wants me to come during the celebration era, which is, that what we consider kind of the November, December era. But it's very expensive. It's very expensive to come during that time. But I know there's a lot of festivals and a lot of family gatherings, a lot of things happening in various cities that I would love to see and be connected to. But it's an expense, and so you just have to plan it out right, But I do plan to come hopefully within a year and come and see and enjoy and get to meet and connect with the people, the locals.
Beautiful. What is family life like for you? This period, family life, as in how do you unwind? How do you spend that time? What is it like for you?
Well, doing COVID changed a lot of things. So you have to find ways to be creative because you can't get out and about, or, sometimes you have to think about, how you spend your time around various groups of people. So I spend a lot of time streaming content, movies, TV. I do a lot of reading still. I spend it as a writer. One of the things that I've learned that you have to learn to sit with yourself, to sit in silence, to sit, in long periods of time, where you're not really engaged deeply with other people because you're trying to pour, these ideas and these characters out onto the page. And so I guess for me, from that perspective, a lot of my writer friends are like, they're enjoying COVID because it hasn't hurt them, because it's like it forces them to write. It gives them opportunities to write in ways they didn't have before, because many of them now, as you probably know, are working partially or in some cases 100% remote because of the pandemic still occurring. So it's been good. It's getting good, and from that perspective, I cook, those kinds of things. And recently, I adopted a dog. I don't have it yet, but it's coming. And so it's going through its process of getting its shots and getting spayed, neutered, and everything. And so within a week, I have a dog here in the house with us as well.
Beautiful, beautiful. Now, how do you get, I know you've said a little bit of, spending time with yourself, in that quietness and getting out the creative juice and all that. But beyond that, do you have any other way that you bring out your creativity onto the canvas around you?
Sure. I think for me, I'm a creative person. I think a lot of times, I told my sister, she said, being a creative person, you feel sometimes greedy creatively because you're always trying to find ways to do things to express yourself. So I did the book cover for myself. So I learned a number of years started because part of that creative activity within me. I love digital artwork. So I love seeing, like, one of the things about IG, I'm connected to a lot of different channels where you see a lot of excellent art. There's one channel called Dope Black Art, which is on Instagram, and they're always just showcasing very beautiful artwork from African people from the diaspora. Just the creativity, and it's just so wondrous to see so many of us and see how powerfully creative, and many of us are creative in multiple lanes. And it reminded me of Tomi Adeyomi's book, Children of Blood and Bone. And in that book, she talks about and deals with magic and how you have different groups who have various types of magic. And there was one group that was a mixture, and it had various ley lines of magic in it, and I think it was called Titones, and they were a mixture. And that's how I feel us in the diaspora. We are Titones. We are a mixture of all the beautiful magical ley lines from the continent. So inside me, I look at myself, I feel like it's kind of, I have to satisfy, because it's like the elders, the ancestors inside of me want to get out. And so I have Somali in me, I have Kenyan in me, I have Yoruba, I have Mali, and I have DRC, and all those things are fighting, I think, inside of me to get out. And so I find ways, whether it's reading, it's writing, creating art, on my own, trying to write comic books, or just trying to also sometimes just looking at other things sometimes inspire me. I can sit down and look at various African fashion, African crafts, and those kinds of things, and I get inspired immediately.
Whoa. I can hear you saying, connecting with that DNA that flows. It's the DNA.
A fire. It's a fire, man. It's a
fire. Yeah, you can't help it. It's like when you close your eyes, the DNA is just screaming at you, and you have no choice but to let it out there.
I think that is it.
Now, what do you intend to achieve with your book, My Scars and My Birthmarks? What do you intend to achieve with it? I want to believe that's your first work.
Yes, it is. And what I wanted to treat, not only just to do an introduction, but also do an introduction that is relevant.
Okay.
The book is broken down into a few chapters, where the first chapter I kind of address, my own personal issues. Those poems in the first are just my own personal issues and how life has affected me as an individual person. Then the second chapter, I look at my interactions with other people. And then the third is my interactions as a Black man and Black America with not only the United States, but the world. And then the last chapter is a couple of short stories that have a sci-fi fantasy feel to it, because I really just wanted to kind of introduce myself and my ability, and just to kind of share various ways that I can express myself and speak to other people and allow people to touch. So I really just wanted to be relevant at a time when people are really looking for connections to people. I'm sure you're aware, in the podcast sphere, you've seen there's a number of podcasts where African-American men in the UK, men on the continent are having discussions about community, about addressing, masculinity, toxicity in the social network of their communities and everything. So I wanted to speak to that same thing. And I think you're doing some of the same thing with the word café.
Rachel is...
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Hello, nerds. Come listen to the History Nerds United podcast, and let's make history fun again. We interview today's best authors, whether they are established Pulitzer Prize winners or someone debuting their first book. Let us show you that history is not a boring class you took in high school, but a place where the best stories come from. And we don't just cover history, we also love to chat about true crime, biographies, memoirs, and so much more. So head on over to History Nerds United and let us introduce you to your new favorite book and learn the story behind the story.
History Nerds United.
Yeah, Rachel is still saying he's more African in his thinking than he looks, so you can... That's what Rachel is saying. She just dropped a comment.
Tell her I said I appreciate
more African.
it. I appreciate it. Yes. I met a brother. I met a brother from he's from the Igbo tribe. I met a brother from the Igbo tribe recently, and we were talking, and I told him everything, and he said, "Yeah, you look like Yoruba people." He said, "Some of my closest friends are Yoruba." He said, "You look like them." So
you look like them. So, I can relate. The minute she dropped that comment, I was like, you're very right, because Orlando is he's more African. He's more Nigerian, as in the way he's expressing himself and all that, and it's beautiful.
I think you're going to find more people who want to do the same thing, because I think they're realizing that a lot of what they feel is their culture is a shadow of the real culture from West Africa.
Of the real culture. True. So what's your plan for the future? You have a book out there now. What's your plan for the future?
My future is to do more writing. I'm also interested in becoming a film and television writer as well. We have our website, www.Kuumba Concepts. Kuumba, we chose that name because it comes from the Nguza Saba from Kwanzaa, and it means creativity. And we wanted to be those types of people who are creative.
Southern Africa, right? I want to be
exactly
Africa now.
Yes, sir. And to bring all of that into it again, more of those ley lines of creativity inside me, and just bring that out, and to bring, because we want to be able to bring the stories, because Africa has a lot of stories that have not been told, and have stories that have been purposely pushed down and not paid attention to. And what we want to do is be a part of bringing our stories, not only from the United States, but all of our stories to the fore, and our histories, our lore, our folklore, our all those things become woven into the social media fabric, just like all other cultures are now. And I think that's important. And I've had conversations with people, and people are excited. There are people having conversations where they really want to create spaces where people can connect and film stories and share that connection with each other. And so when I get there, I plan to be off and running, and working with people to get those things happening, because it needs to happen. Yeah. I want it to be more than the stereotypical action films we get out of Nollywood. Something more touching.
more touching. So which African story, relates with you so well? Let me test your Africa? Should I use the word Africanness now? Which story?
I would say,
let me hear you.
I wouldn't say it's a particular story so much. It is the I would say the Orishas amongst the Yoruba really touched me. I've read some of the stories. I've listened to Ifas talk about what it really means, and that sometimes when Ifa said that sometimes people mistake the Orishas for being gods, and he said in reality they're not gods so much as that these stories represent the forces that are around us that teach us how we are to interact with the world and teach us how we are to interact with each other. And the more I pay attention to those stories, it feels like it opens me up so that I understand the world around me more, and where I'm supposed to be and what I'm supposed to be doing with the energies of creativity that I have. And so I would say that Rishas have really pointed me to that.
That's the tip of the iceberg, I must tell you, because
yes, sir.
You've not seen it. You've not seen anything yet. You haven't seen anything yet, because for Nigeria, for example, we have, for me, from where I stand, the culture richness in Nigeria, it's beyond one's imagination, because you talk about the East, you talk about the West, you talk about the South, you talk about the North. But now when you dig deep, you come to see that those who live along the coastlines have this similar culture that ties them together.
Yes.
You know, recently yes. I did a little bit of digging. You know, one of my works
yes,
yet to be released. I'm still working on it. I did a little bit of digging to understand the people along the coast, because when you said Mississippi, that just came to me.
Yes.
And the truth is they are all connected. Like yes, you trace them along the coastline of River State, the New Calabar River, the Bight of Biafra, and it flows out of it flows into what do you call it now, the West African river line, and it goes and it keeps going. So you come to see that all those who have traveled along those lines, they have something that binds them together.
Correct.
Either you listen to the way they speak, the way they pronounce things, their belief system and all that. So we have a rich culture. That's the truth. And the truth is we are yet to get the best out of it. And I really like what you're doing. Discover more of this and bring this discovery into contemporary times and telling the story the way it should.
Okay. So I was simply saying it's funny because a friend of mine was talking about Benin and Togo is like going across the street, you know, for him. And in similar ways, when you think about people from Jamaica, they have a very West African perspective and a very West African spirit, and their culture is very much informed by West Africa. So it speaks to what you're saying, that as you go along, you see there's very, very little differences between our people, so particularly as you go along the West African coastline. So it speaks to what you're saying, and that there's very little differences between us, and that I'm looking forward to seeing how we come together more and more. You know, we have that, you know, the similarity as you were talking about tracing along the coastal lines. You know, it's funny because once you leave the coastal lines of Africa, you go to places like a hot spot for Nigerians is Jamaica. Why? Because Jamaica is so filled with West African culture naturally, you know, because of the diaspora. So those connections are very powerful. And I think one of the things that I feel like once we realize how connected we still are, it will kind of like mute a lot of those sometimes dissenting voices that says that a continental African is completely different than an African born and raised in the UK or the United States or Brazil. A lot of times people forget that Brazil is the largest population of Africans outside of the continent, not the United States. And it's interesting.
True. True. You're very correct about that. Very interesting. All right. Now, what is your plan for the future?
More writing. We're setting up some things right now. Setting up some things. Hopefully, talking to some individuals who will help us get some of our ideas in front of for television and film, as well as for comic books. There'll be ideas, everything from drama to action hero stuff that is appropriate and expression of, African stories and African perspective, throughout the diaspora. So that's the goal. More writing, and to get some things into the media as form of film and television.
Exactly. Wonderful. Thank you for this moment, for granting us this opportunity to come into the cafe to share your story with us. And the truth is, we look forward to having you more and more as you come over, and a deeper collaboration in the future.
I look forward to it.
I'm so grateful. Guys, we've been discussing with Orlando Taylor. I call him Orlando because that name means a lot to me. Yes, that's my elder brother's name, Orlando. So I enjoy calling that name. We've been discussing with him. He has a book. Yes, the book is titled My Scars Are My Birthmarks. Go ahead, it's on Amazon. Go look for it. Wonderful book. I tried getting it I think a month ago, but I don't know what happened with my card and all that, so it declined. So I'm going to go back for it, as in go look for the book.
All right.
A wonderful piece. I went through the what do you call it now, the reviews and all that beautiful work, So guys, yes, this is where we're going to end it for today. Yes, you've been listening to myself, Amakri Isoboye, and Orlando Taylor on the Word Cafe Live Show.
Thank you for having me.
I'm so grateful. Thank you, Orlando. We hope that you will grace this place again.
I hope so. You'll have me again.
Thank you. Rachel is saying thank you. She said it's an interesting session. Rachel is also a writer. Yes, she's a writer. So yes, she is. Beautiful writer. She's done a book also, and great work. All right, guys, we have to draw the curtain here till we come your way again. You know how we do it in the cafe. We believe in what? Words. Why? They are the unit of creation. Thank you. Till we come your way again, what do we say? Bye for now.
Oh, yeah, beautiful. Before we sign off, I just want to encourage you. Yeah, it's been a wonderful time. And also, I'd like to hear from you your feedback. You've been listening to the Word Cafe podcast. I would love to hear from you the feedback. If you have any questions, you go ahead and ask those questions. You can reach me at my email address, amacrigaribaldi@gmail.com. Amacri is AMACHRIBALDI@gmail.com. And we'll get back. You know how we do it on the show. Thank you.
Awesome time it has been with you on the Word Cafe podcast today. Thank you for being there. You can catch me up on my social media handles, Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, all at Amakri Isoboye. Also, you can get copies of my books, A Cocktail of Words, The Color of Words, and my HR notebook on Amazon and on Roving Heights online bookstores. You can also subscribe to my YouTube page at the same address. Yes, till we see you again. Bye for now.